Thank you so much for hopping on. This is Jackie Cooper with the Maryland Blockchain Association, as well as the Blockchain Legal Institute talk show. And today I have a really exciting guest on who I've known for a short while, but as I've known him, I've realized the depth of his background and the giving back that he does to the community, both through mentorship, education, as well as other supports. So that's why I'm very excited to have him on the Maryland Blockchain Association, as well as the fact that Constellation is also one of the members of the Blockchain Association. And so I wanted to thank you for joining the Maryland Blockchain Association and helping us actually create a larger network of knowledge base. How are you doing today, Benjamin?
I'm doing great, Jackie. I really appreciate you having me here. And yes, as you mentioned, we recently became a member of the Maryland Blockchain Association. Proud to be a member. As you well know, we both cross-section with many different groups and folks and constituents within the industry. So it was only a matter of time before we found each other.
That's true. That's true. So the purpose of the Maryland Blockchain Association is education and advocacy. And I know that you're also about education and advocacy as well. But before we actually speak more about what the Constellation Network does, how did you get into blockchain? What's your background? Because I'm all about stories and I love to have others know sometimes the unusual paths that we take in order to get here. I know for my background in law and education, I've been in the blockchain space about 9, 10 years now, and it was not a direction that I even thought or even knew about when I started my career path. How did you get involved?
Yeah, going way back, I was a terrible student in high school, but this was back in the late 90s when computers had just started coming out. Really from the commercial perspective, they became a lot more affordable. And I was lucky enough to be in a household where we had one, and I just got really good with the thing, right? And while it was all wonderful at first, I got in trouble my first year of college for hacking a central information system of a university. But that aside, it got me really interested in networking and data and so forth. So most, if not all, my career has been in technology. And I've been heavily focused in the enterprise data space. I'd say one of my favorite jobs was with Web Trends, which invented web analytics in 1993. I've worked with Oracle and a lot of really cool Fortune 500 companies. But I didn't really care for how data was being handled on behalf of people, right? Like a lot of people don't know that their digital footprint is the lifeblood of pretty much almost every major tech company out there. And I met Ben Jorgensen, my business partner, who's the CEO of Constellation, through Oracle. And he knew I was really passionate about, as you've mentioned, giving back to people, trying to balance the value chain when it comes to data and money in this world in some aspects when it comes to technology. And he said, man, you need to get involved in blockchain. And I said, no, everybody that's involved in that is the star of their own movie. I don't want to get involved in that. And he's like, no, but it has all these great attributes. So I really want to hand it off to my business partner because he's the one that inspired me to get involved in this. And as soon as I realized that, wow, this stuff actually can bring forth a lot of abundance and balance to folks. You got Facebook that's worth almost $1 trillion and they have very few purchasable products. They're making their money somewhere, right? And so that's largely what I've been focused on is the data side of things. And that's how I got into blockchain.
So you have a tech background?
I do. I'm an electrical engineer. I've been a developer for a long time, but I don't really do it for my job. It's just one of those things that's enhanced a lot of what I do. I'm a traditional business development guy that has a good blend of sales, product, and marketing, and really focuses on go-to-market of net new ideas.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that though, because for a lot of individuals who might be listening, they're, thinking, okay, do I need to be in tech or can I be in the business side? And I think that you can apply any skill set to a blockchain business. You might have to have a partner that's on the tech side, but there's a lot of strong business wisdom that you still have to apply, even if you're in a tech business. So what are the focuses for your company? So if someone knows nothing about Constellation Network, who's your customer and who are you trying to help?
Yeah, I mean, we made some very strategic design decisions in starting this company and how we formed it. We're an open source technology. We wanted to have this technology to be available to anyone. So if you think of Apple and Microsoft and Linux, we're much more like Linux than those other two. And with that, we decided to take a chapter out of IOTA's book. Folks that know IOTA, they were one of the original directed acyclic graphs or DAG blockchains, which is a different approach to the architecture. And we decided to fix a lot of the things that we thought they were a little lackluster on. Let's just say that. I still have mad respect for them. But we wanted to focus our network on the validation and management of complex data types at scale. So really the big data blockchain was the focus that was available for all. Because going back to this idea of sovereignty and people owning their data and being able to exchange data for money or rewards, we wanted to build a network that not only was robust on the incentive side of digital assets and that creation of the minting tokens, but being able to pin them to data types, tokenizing data. And so when we set out to do this, we had some very grandiose visions of who we wanted to work with. And I went heavy on the enterprise because that's where I'm from with Oracle. But I got a little bit of a bug when it came to the federal government. I thought, living in America, I think is the best country in the world. And since we have invented so many amazing staple technologies for the globe, I thought, man, our country should be a front leader in blockchain technology, which is largely a global movement in a good way from a decentralized perspective. But it felt like the federal government was a little bit behind. And so about 5.5 years ago, we founded our company in 2017. So it wasn't too long after we founded our company that we landed our first contract with the government. And since then, that's been our major customer. So we've been one of the most, if not the most awarded blockchain companies in federal history with the US government. We've never missed a milestone. Very, very proud of that. But I think there's something special going back to this open source idea that we just ran a hackathon as an example, and it's so cool to see people around the world that have access to the same tools that the government has validated and stress tested on behalf of the blockchain industry. So I'm very proud of that.
I'm proud of that too, because of the fact that there's such a need for state governments as well as the federal government to actually take the next steps in terms of using this technology. So do you know how many states are actually using blockchain technology and possibly using your partnering with you?
Well, no, I wish I knew. It's largely
That's going to
because
be research that we'll have to do, especially we're going to have
yeah.
to Maryland.
Well, it's tough because a lot of our technology can be used behind closed doors, meaning that you're able to run this stuff locally or do privatized blockchains that we would have no idea on our public network. And we did that by design, right? With the government as an example, we work with the DoD versus really working with individual states, even though I have relationships with some amazing state leaders that I'm aware of that they're spinning up this technology. But I'm fully unaware exactly the perfect number, if you will. But there are some pretty cool expressions happening right now across many three-letter agencies, municipalities, as well as local and state governments.
So if an agency wanted to get involved and to reach out to you, or if they had no clue on how to even do the next steps, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, since I always love meeting new people, I always try to get them to start with me, right? We certainly have a team that folks can qualify and validate, but when they're a certain caliber of a constituent, I like to educate them first and sort of bring them down to earth on some of the misnomers they may have on blockchain. A big fan of Bitcoin, but we often are compared to Bitcoin from both a finance as well as a consensus algorithm. And I only say that because people hear Bitcoin and they think, especially at the state or government level, is this going to nuke the planet if we decide to use this ledger to run, certain aspects of our business? So I have to educate a lot of folks on things like, hey, no, there's ways to do this in a very energy efficient and environmentally safe way. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to get involved. a lot of these sort of misconceptions, because even though I love cryptocurrency and what digital assets have brought to the global stage, I think they also have created a lot of unfortunate misunderstandings of where the true technology can go, and creating impact and use cases that in many cases don't even involve digital assets. So that's typically how I get started, get them on an intro call, get them a ton of resources, and then let them do their own research on those resources. And one other thing, Jackie, is that I do not believe there's one blockchain to rule them all. So I like to be an advocate for the industry versus trying to rat hole them or just get them painted into a corner just with Constellation. I would say, hey, there's a lot of great stuff out there. Depending on what your use case is, I might recommend another outfit you should explore.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I appreciate what you're doing, because you see the big picture and you're also trying to be an advocate for solving problems and finding the best fit for that problem. So are there for those that might not be aware, are there certain solutions that actually Constellation, that are using Constellation that you would like to highlight? Certain applications or examples that kind of would help people who might not be aware of blockchain use cases, as an example of something.
Yeah, absolutely. The most popular that we hear in the industry is around financial transactions. I would say the majority of transactions on blockchain are digital asset trading, selling, buying, that sort of stuff. And then the most other popular, I would say, use case outside of that would be like supply chain management or digital logistics. I think folks just figured supply chain, blockchain, let's just make these things work together. But they really are the hand to fit the glove, right? With regards to Constellation, our three major use cases, I would say the big one that I would consider ourselves somewhat cavalier in is secure information sharing, right? And that's just communications, because we are a communications protocol. We're called the Hypergraph Transfer Protocol, or HGTP. And the traditional internet, it's HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So really that communication protocol that right now is powering upwards of 400 billion emails every single day around the world is a little lackluster when it comes to security, as we've seen through many issues with centralized services, much like me hacking when I was younger. If you can get to the honeypot, you can take the system down. And this has sort of plagued the TCP IP or traditional internet. And this also is why the US government was looking at us, because no matter what they do to orchestrate command and control mission communications with their contracting partners or other three-letter agencies, they can't really get away without using the internet, right? And so we suggest that, hey, we're not saying you replace the internet, but what if you were to gather very sensitive information that needs to be protected and run that on HGTP versus HTTP in a secure information sharing modality, right? And that's become like our front runner. And it's almost kind of underwhelming, right? Just all you do is you sign on using a wallet, you sign on the data to be transferred with your identity, who can receive it, and then they have to sign on when receiving it. So just add one extra step to things like Slack messaging or email or text messaging that gives you that assurance that, hey, this has not been spoofed, nothing's been altered. You can even have it burned if you wanted to. So I think that that is one of the most promising things when we can't really trust any of the systems that we've been using today. Speaking of trust, the second one is really around trustworthy AI and solving that black box issue. When you run a query against, say, ChatGPT, you kind of have to take its word for it, right? You can't really play the math back to see where that source data came from. And if it's a trusted source that's been validated. And we actually just launched a demo this week with Forward Edge AI, one of our partners, showing that you can have an assurance score that says, hey, this is how much you can have a confidence in this AI output, which I think is a really big issue when it comes to large language algorithms. And the last one I'll make very brief is on IoT sensors. One of the things that really is keeping back a lot of smart communications amongst all the infrastructure that our world has involved in is that the protocols don't work with each other. They don't interoperate.
Yeah.
Nobody trusts each other. They want to have their own attribution data. They don't want to share it. It's not secure. And so we've really perfected that to the tune of not only to securely share machine-to-machine data, but also add an incentivization or incentive design so that these machines are paying each other out for that validated data as a sense of value for making the network a better orchestration.
I see so many applications that this can be applied to. So are universities also looking at using, Constellation, both for what they have in the education world as well as working with their students to learn more about the blockchain area?
Yeah, yeah, we've got that's one of my favorite passion projects is academia. I think we both share this, right? And I would say Arizona State University has been the most brazen university I've worked with so far in blockchain. They're a really great group. They have a whole research lab. Right now, I'm doing some amazing stuff with Chaminade University, just to point a couple of these my favorites out, even though I like all the other ones. And what's cool is the Chaminade University is we recently just completed a blockchain certification program. I helped build out the entire curriculum with Dr. Helen Turner, the professor there. We had a bunch of students. And it was awesome because it was not only funded and sponsored by the National Science Foundation, but now we're working on taking a use case that takes hardware sensors that allows the students to build a solution that's going to impact the state of Hawaii and the residents in Hawaii. So I'm a big believer in cross-pollination of institutions. That's why I'm very happy to be a part of Maryland Blockchain Association, because I think you're amazing at this. And it gives us a chance when working with the university to involve students, the locals, like the residences, the banks, the government, and then to have that bow on top of the National Science Foundation that really sees the vision of completeness of what we're trying to do. I just think it's going to really make the world a better place.
I agree with you. There's so many different layers and levels here, and we're excited to be partnering with you both, not just on the membership side, but on the vision that we have for Maryland and the DMV area, because I know that whatever we do in Maryland is a seed and it's going to ripple out. And there's going to be a lot of projects that we'll be able to partner together on that will educate both individuals who want to be in blockchain as well as just want to know about what blockchain is all about. So any last minute thoughts before we sign off? Because I know that we're going to be both hopping onto other projects and sharing the next word on the next street. So what last minute thoughts do you have?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Jackie. This is great. I would say that I want to be seen as somebody who's a steward of abundance and trust and transparency. I feel like we're living in a time where things are starting to get a little dystopian, especially with AI. Nobody trusting each other. I often think of it as like the telephone game when we were kids and you'd whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time it got to the last person, it's not even close to where it started, right? With blockchain, if we're able to bottle some of that stuff at the source, we now have that attribution of truth that can play into automation to make the world a much better place. That said, I feel like if overemphasized, it turns into a totalitarian state. We have to be very cautious. And this is why I was very pleased to be on your regulation and compliance podcast or panel recently. And I know we'll do more of that, is that we all need to come together. Blockchain is a team sport, which is one of the early adages that was coined in this industry. And I feel like if we all come together and share what we have, we're all going to benefit. Versus, I feel like the old world that we're slowly, in some respects, quickly coming out of is, five dudes that run a company of thousands of people, and they're the ones that make all the money while nobody else makes money. I think there's enough for us all to win here. And so while I do sound like an idealist, to have seen some of these expressions in my career gives me more hope than any other technology I've ever interfaced with. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful that you're here. So, as I always say at the end of all my shows, for everyone who's listening, thank you so much. But be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all so interconnected, and we're even now more than ever part of one world. So, everyone, have a great day, and we will talk to each other soon.